Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today Disney is back at it once again by remaking another one of their animated classics into a live action remake. This time it is the Little Mermaid's turn. This movie stars Halle Bailey as the title character. You have Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. You have Javier Bardem as King Triton, and of course the great Daveed Diggs, who I absolutely love, by the way, as Sebastian in this film. And so I guess this is a spoiler review for The Little Mermaid, even though this is a remake of a classic, a very faithful remake of this original classic. So if you have not seen this live action one, or I guess the original animated one, even though that movie has been out forever by now, and I am assuming most of you guys have seen it, I will be talking about the story of The Little Mermaid and some changes here and there that happen in this film. And so I want to start off by talking about my history with the Disney live action remakes, because my history with them is a little bit different than most people, because I didn't grow up watching a lot of Disney, classics. I didn't watch those old 2D animated Disney movies. I mainly watched Pixar as a kid, or I mainly watched Nickelodeon as a kid, and so there's only a few here or there that I did watch, like the Lion King animated movie, and because my sisters watched The Little Mermaid all the time, I did actually see The Little Mermaid animated film before watching this one. But with other films like, like Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, I actually never watched the original animated one. Like Cinderella, I also have not seen the original animated one, and I watched the remakes first as a kind of a little experiment, and I don't mind the live action Aladdin remake. I thought that was a fun movie, but of course once I watched the animated one, I saw how that movie just lacked the magic that the animated one does have, versus something like Cinderella, where I've seen bits and pieces of the first Cinderella because I've seen Cinderella 3 because my sisters watched Cinderella 3, which had some weird time travel stuff where it kind of covers the original story a little bit, and so I know the story enough. But the live action Cinderella movie maintained a lot of the magic and a lot of the spirit and a lot of the themes that the original one had. Something like Mulan and The Lion King just felt like it lacked all the magic that the original one did have whatsoever. And so of course with this new remake of The Little Mermaid, I was going in a little bit hesitant, but walking out of it, I think this is the closest we've gotten to something like Cinderella since that movie has come out, besides I guess Cruella. But Cruella was kind of an entire different reimagining origin story for that character, where it kind of took its own unique story, versus this one is an actual live action remake of a Disney classic that feels like it maintains that magic that the animated film has, which I think is the biggest compliment I can give the filmmakers and the people who worked on this film, because it does have that magic. It does have that wonder and that awe, and the music is beautiful. And Halle Bailey, who of course is the star of this movie, the reason why this movie exists is to showcase her talents, because yes, her musical career is very big here in the United States, or here around the world. I actually don't know really how big of a star she is in the music world, but in terms of the film world, this is her debut. This is her, showing off what she can do in this film. Of course, she's going to be in the Color Purple musical adaptation later this year, and so she's going to be a star. She's phenomenal in this film. And of course, every once in a while on Twitter, there's somebody who tweets like, at what point in a movie did you realize that you're going to absolutely love this movie? And the Part of Your World song that you get to see featured a little bit inside of the trailers of this film, hearing Halle Bailey's voice as this character, that was absolutely gorgeous. That entire scene was beautiful, and her singing and her voice is so incredibly good for this character, and every single song that she had was absolutely wonderful. I really liked that song. Also, Daveed Diggs as Sebastian, I really loved his take on this character. Of course, looking more like an actual crab instead of the sort of character that he looks like inside of the animated one takes a second to get used to, but I think of all the different animals that are recreated in this live action remake, I think Sebastian works the best because of the talent of Daveed Diggs, because he's just amazing. I love that guy so much. But the combination between Halle Bailey and Daveed Diggs, and also Awkwafina, who I did not mind as Scuttle, although her song was a little out of place, but still funny, and in a kind of like, I enjoyed the song because I was kind of laughing at it because it was so out of place, and it was really funny because of how out of place and how different it felt like compared to the rest of the movie. But for the most part, I did enjoy the entire voice cast in the movie in terms of all the animals in the film. Another thing that really stood out with this movie compared to other Disney live action remakes, like for instance Aladdin or the Pinocchio remake, which God, we don't talk about that piece of garbage that was dumped on Disney Plus, but this movie has great production value. You can tell that they spent a lot of money on this movie, and even though the underwater stuff doesn't necessarily look photoreal, it feels like it's stylistically on purpose. It feels like, some things are kind of uncanny for a little while, but you get used to it after, some time being underwater, and I end up enjoying a lot of the CGI in this film, and especially when you get above water, you're actually on physical sets built for this film, or you're actually on location, like the beach scenes in this movie that were just absolutely gorgeously shot. I think Rob Marshall does a lot in this movie to bring a lot of value to how this movie is made. I think in terms of Kenneth Branagh directing Cinderella, you can feel his style in that film, and here you can feel Rob Marshall has some creativity on display in this film that does come come across on screen, which you don't get too often in these Disney live action remakes, like Guy Ritchie's Aladdin, which felt very bland, felt very CG. Even though I did enjoy that movie for what it was, it doesn't feel like it's as, lovingly put together like this movie was. And of course, Melissa McCarthy is another standout in this film. Her Ursula has such a commanding presence, and I think Ursula in general is one of the better Disney villains that they have had, especially in this era of Disney. I absolutely love this character, and I know some people have already said it online, but her Ursula and the voice that she does in this film feels almost uncanny as compared to the animated one, because her voice sounds exactly like the voice actress from the animated film, where it kind of feels uncanny. Like I said, it feels like you're hearing a voice that's not supposed to be coming out of Melissa McCarthy, and she has a great performance in this movie. The entire Poor Unfortunate Soul song was beautifully done. I love the look of this scene. I love the style of this scene. I love the amount of fun that Melissa McCarthy was having in this role, especially when it came to all the parts that she was in it. So especially with the ending where she becomes a giant, monster towards the end, a giant kaiju at the end of the film, or the Poor Unfortunate Souls in the middle of this film. So she was a great presence to have and a great villain to have in this film as well. And the absolute best part of this entire film for me was, of course, the relationship between Prince Eric and Ariel, which if this storyline did not work in this movie, the entire film would have absolutely collapsed if they didn't have the chemistry that they had. If the romance wasn't as beautiful as it was in this film, it just would not have worked in any sort of way. All the other good things that I said about this movie, with the casting and with the visuals and with the directorial stamp from Rob Marshall, none of it would have worked if it wasn't for this dynamic that these two characters had throughout the entire film. And this is in large part due to some few key moments in this film with, after she first saw Prince Eric wash up on the beach, and they had that entire sequence where they met, and it leads to the Under the Sea song, and it leads to the Kiss a Girl song when they're on the boat on the river. That is just one of the best scenes in the animated one. It's also one of the best scenes in this film, which again is vibrant, it is colorful, it is beautiful, and this romance that is built between these two characters, you're rooting for them the entire time. And I felt just as strongly watching this relationship in this film as I did in the animated one, with a few expanded things with Prince Eric's story in this movie as well that kind of fleshed things out. His song wasn't necessarily the best song, and I do wish that he brought it back at some point towards the end, and maybe it was a kind of a mixture between this song and the original song. But besides that, this relationship really did work for me. Like I said, if this did not work, the movie would have collapsed under its own weight, but because it was so great in this movie, I ended up really enjoying every single scene with these two characters on screen. Now, when it comes to the actual changes in this movie, I don't honestly think there's too many, and I haven't seen the animated one in a long time. Like I said, my sisters watch it all the time, so I kind of saw it in the background, but of course these songs and the magic you feel hearing this music and the feeling that you get watching these characters definitely did carry through. In terms of changes, there was that Scuttle song, which of course I thought was really funny, even though it felt very much out of place. I think all the additional songs in this movie, because I don't know The Little Mermaid off the back of my hand, every single time there was a song that felt like it was out of place, I can tell that it was a new song. Like the Prince Eric song was new. Of course, you had the Scuttle song was new, and I think there was one other new song that I can't think off the top of my head, but every single time there was a new song, or there was an extension in the Under the Sea song, which, you could tell that it was an extension because I've heard that song so many times. That one, I think, of all the changes in these songs, worked the best because it's building off of a song that we already know and love. The other additional songs were not necessarily bad. I think they did feel out of place at a certain point, but I wouldn't call them bad additions to the movie. I do think if this movie were to expand in any places, I wish it did expand on the King Triton and Ariel relationship. I think that their dynamic was okay, and I think the emotional gut punch that the movie's trying to do by the end of the film, where Ariel is going off with Prince Eric, just didn't hit nearly as hard emotionally as I wanted it to, especially when, he kind of dies, he's killed by Ursula towards the end of the movie, and he sinks down. I really didn't care too much about this relationship, and I wish that they expanded on this rather than having, some of the other moments, like some of these other additional songs. I would rather that time be put towards this relationship, because this relationship is very important to the character of Ariel, because that's what she's trying to escape. She's trying to escape the grasp of her overprotective father, and I think that is a story that is very worth telling, and it's a very good message for kids to say that it's okay to move on from your parents, or for parents it's okay to let go of your children, to let them become their own person. Of course, that is a great message to show in a kids movie, and I just wish that message was a little bit stronger in this film. And of course, there's Flounder. Flounder's a fish. He's just straight up a fish in this movie. And, they make him look a little bit different than just a straight up fish, and I think the voice does help, because I do like Jacob Tremblay as a voice of Flounder. I think he does as good of a job as he can by looking just like a fish, but, there's a sequence with the shark at the beginning, which I didn't really care too much with that, and Flounder seemed to be cut out of this movie a lot more than he was. His involvement in the story was much more present in the animated one, and so it just feels like they didn't really know what to do with Flounder in this film, and he's just a fish. There's nothing really else I can tell you about Flounder's involvement in this film, because he's just kind of there. And of course, I can't help myself but to mention this. It is a review on the Little Mermaid live action movie, which of course is going to be a woke recreation of this animated movie that all these guys are going to be all upset that it's going to be a different version with a black actress playing the Little Mermaid, even though they probably never saw the original animated one and they really don't care, and they definitely have not seen this movie yet, and they're causing so many, statements and kind of, reviews about this movie, even though they have definitely not seen it yet. To all those people, just go outside and touch some grass. Just go experience literally anything else, and don't watch this movie. If you have that mindset, just do something that makes you happy. I don't care what it is. Just try to find some joy in your life instead of tearing down this kids movie, because this movie does have great messages for kids. If you see those images of all these black girls looking up to these giant Little Mermaid posters out in the subway or wherever these posters are, seeing themselves on the big screen, there's something beautiful about that I do enjoy about Disney doing stuff like this. And so if you're one of those people and you're going to leave a dislike on this review, which you probably didn't get this far into the review before you disliked that, because even though I'm a small channel, that still happens more often than you would think. I'm a very small channel compared to other channels, and my most disliked videos tend to be the ones about Disney movies and ones about Marvel movies, and it can be frustrating. So I had to mention it here. But if you're one of those people, just don't give it the light of day and just go do something that makes you happy. Please, I want you to enjoy something in your life instead of just being so hateful. But before I end off this review, there's one more thing that I do want to talk about, which is the sequel potential for this movie, because I think they do leave this movie off in a spot where they're kind of hinting at the possibility of a sequel. They're not straight up saying, oh, there's going to be a sequel to this movie, but Ariel literally says by the end of this film that this is just the beginning. They ride off on the boat, and you have all the human characters with the mermaid characters all kind of standing together, which again, you're uniting two different types of people. This is a great message to give to children, and so you get to see them riding off in the boat, and because of that one line, the way that it's performed, the way that it's presented in this film, feels like there is room for a sequel. I don't know what the Little Mermaid 2 animated film is like. I know one of my friends at work does absolutely love the second Little Mermaid movie for whatever reason, and I don't know that story, but if they're going to do something completely original, or if they're going to try to adapt that story in any way, who knows? Honestly, I think there is room for a sequel for this, especially if it does well, and because I did actually enjoy this one more than I enjoyed Aladdin and a lot of the other Disney live-action remakes. I think if they do a sequel to this film, I'm happy for the creative team behind this film for getting another shot at this story, because this is definitely one of the better Disney live-action remakes, which I'm very happy to report on. I really did enjoy this film, so now I leave it off to you guys. What did you guys think of the Little Mermaid live-action remake? I really enjoyed it. I'm very curious to hear all your favorite things about this film. Did you enjoy the casting? Did you enjoy the new songs or the new renditions of the older songs? What did you think about the Little Mermaid live-action movie? I'm very curious to hear all of your thoughts. And of course, if you did enjoy this review, make sure you guys leave a like on the video, and also subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. I haven't done a review for Fast X, unfortunately. I've been really busy, haven't uploaded too often, but I'm getting right back into the summer gear. We're going to have a lot of great movies come out in the next few weeks, especially with Spider-Verse releasing next week, which I'm very, very excited to get into that film. So definitely stay tuned on the channel for all these reviews just like this one. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope to see you all in my next one.